Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Randall Laughlin here. We're on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Before we get started with our guest today, Humphrey Hawksley, to give you a brief rundown on me. I am an author, 7-8 books, I think. I also a book coach and publisher, published over 50 books for other people. I also am a researcher. I claim researcher as my primary mode of operation today. I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem, treat symptoms, and you'll always be treating them, and the cause could get worse. And when I'm not doing that, I host 3 TV shows every Thursday here on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Which reminds me, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. So let's get to our guest today, Humphrey Hawksley, a mouthful. And he is an author, and we're going to be talking about that a lot today. He's also a journalist, and we're going to touch a couple areas in that. And he's also a commentator. He's been BBC, I guess, over 30 years. Been to all 7 continents in the world and our Earth. And he's such an amazing history. I can't wait to get to talk to him today. So, Humphrey, please join me up here on stage.
Red, very good to see you. Very good to see you. Yeah.
And you're in the UK today, right?
I'm in London today, where it's a spring day and the sun is out, but tomorrow it could be hitting 0 and raining. You never know in England.
Yeah.
And where are you? You're in Texas, is that right?
I'm in Houston.
Houston. Yeah.
Yeah. Spring came here about the second week in February, and we've been pushing. I think one day it was over 100 here in Texas. I think yesterday was almost 90 here in Houston.
Okay.
If you convert that, it's up there a ways.
Yeah. But wasn't Texas at one stage, wasn't there a frost and the power grid collapsed?
That was a couple years ago, and that is correct.
Yeah.
I happened to be involved in that at that time because we lost electricity with we got down to almost single digits in Houston, which is extremely rare.
Yeah.
I think usually if it gets down really cold, it's like 15 degrees. But that's absolutely true. The windmills froze up because they didn't have the right kind of oil to sustain that temperature. And lots and lots of solar arrays were wiped out by the following spring with the hailstones. It's an interesting place to be.
Yeah, it certainly is. And gas prices are getting a bit high there at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, we're not quite touching $4. It's still mid $3.50, $3.60, but it's a dollar, at least $1 more than what it was before the Iran war.
Yeah. So, well, we better put that to one side, or we'll go down a rabbit hole.
Before we go down the rabbit hole, we were talking backstage. I saw you. I got an invitation to Vietnam way back when, and then that was the beginning of my naval career. And then I got an invitation to Bosnia at the very end of my career. So I had a chance to be involved in a couple of conflicts. And you said, well, I was just in Vietnam. So why don't we just kind of take a minute and lighthearted chatter about what's going on in Vietnam nowadays?
Well, Vietnam was very interesting for me because I was in Doha. The flight went via Doha, and I think that plane took off minutes before the Iran attack started. Because there was as soon as I arrived in Hong Kong, I went via Hong Kong. The Iran war had begun, and then I flew to Vietnam, where, of course, America had a very big and long, protracted war, which it technically lost in 1975. And I was in Da Nang, which is the central coastal city where the Marines, US Marines, first landed in 1965. And they have some very well curated war museums read there that takes you right through the Vietnamese history. And what's fascinating, and what was fascinating particularly because I was getting all the news reports about Iran, and I was looking at this historical American intervention, for want of a better word, for the cause to stop communism as it was in those days. And the Vietnamese had been fighting what they call foreigners. I think it was since the mid-19th century. So from around 1850, when the French arrived, up until 1975, they were fighting the French, and they were fighting the Japanese when they came. Then they were fighting the Americans, and then they briefly fought the Chinese. And now they're a unified, independent country. But what was striking was that as I walked down the streets of Da Nang, firstly, you had a lot of buzz. Everybody was going about their business, doing their stuff and that. But central to all that was the communist flag flying over these government buildings.
Wow.
So the communism, but it's not communism. It's not the communism the Cold War was about, but it's an authoritarian, non-democratic Asian country that America spent nearly 60,000 men and God knows what else. Lives were lost in it, and that war was lost as such. And it's still flying the flag that America went in to defeat back in 1965.
Yeah, there's a lot of, let's just say, commentary back then on the best and the brightest and this and that and half a dozen other things. It went both the gamut of both ends of things, but that's a topic for another day. Okay. Why don't we jump over to...
No, you can't just do that. What were you doing there? And when were you there?
I was there in 71, 72, and 73.
Okay.
I was part of Operation Market Time. We were basically flying daylight hours out over the South China Sea, identifying any vessel that was going into Haiphong, or any vessel that was an infiltrator trawler going into the Mekong Delta. So we took off. I spent 10 days in the Philippines, 10 days in Vietnam, 10 days in Thailand. And so each of those 10 days, we were out either doing the South China Sea or the Indian Ocean. And we'd take off, be on station generally at daylight. And as soon as it was dark enough, we'd come home. And so we were flying basically 12-hour days, 13-hour days, depending on what was going on. We come across 100 or more ships. But if we found an infiltrator trawler, we made one pass, notified the world. We started off about 15 miles, kept them on radar, and we turned them over to another asset, whether it was an air asset or a submarine asset, that tracked them. If they did go into the Mekong Delta, they sent another aircraft out to blow it out of the water. Other than that, we just collected intel on anything going into Haiphong with regard to any Soviet bloc vessel. So that was my primary mission there.
So it's a very serious mission. Well, let me just run something by you. Then is that somebody said to me as I was sort of, I met an old correspondent friend in Vietnam. They said, they say that we lost the Vietnam War, but actually, if you look at it as one battle within the whole of the Cold War, then the Cold War was won. And if there hadn't have been a stop or whatever happened in Vietnam, maybe the Cold War would not have been won.
Well, you know the power of the press, the power of influence. Absolutely. Tet Offensive, I think, actually was not as bad as it was. There was a lot of destruction of the North Vietnamese, but for whatever reason, the destruction of the America forces overshadowed that to a degree, and there's a lot of will to maybe we don't need to do this. And a big change happened after Tet. Did it have to happen? I don't know. That's one of those places, as you say. It was a stoppage, not really a quick stoppage, but a trend in the opposite direction. Support, congressional, otherwise, media, a lot of things over there. But when you start, having body bags on TV every night, that's pretty gruesome.
Yeah, it's. I was I went to Hue, which was the center of the Tet Offensive, and they've now got the Vietnamese flag flying high above the ancient citadel there, which is quite a sort of symbolic site, and it's a huge tourist place. Everybody's there.
Yeah, Cam Ranh Bay, where I was at, had a beautiful beach. I told people, 30, 40 years from now, it's going to be a major travel place. So we were there, there was a tank on the beach to protect us. A beautiful, beautiful beach.
Yeah, absolutely. Da Nang too. I mean, fantastic. surf coming in and everything. Yeah.
But
anyway, we've been distracted, haven't we?
Oh, easily so.
I hand over back to you, back to your stewardship.
Okay. Why don't we do this? Why don't we take a couple of minutes, talk about what Bosnia is like as you last remember it, and then that takes care of my connection with you directly, and then we'll get into your book.
Well, Bosnia, that was the 90s, was it?
Late 90s.
Yeah, I mean, Bosnia is fascinating in a way because that was the first sort of UN or Western intervention into a European war, and there was a lot of spring in the step because it was, the Cold War had ended and we had won it, and we thought that everything we did was right and we could fix it. But interestingly, just like we're hearing now these accusations, Europe was unable to fix it, and it was Richard Holbrooke from the United States that went in and created the agreement that is still holding by the skin of its teeth in Bosnia now. But those underlying issues, Red, that started the war, the Serbian and the Croats and the Muslims and Albania, Kosovo came later, but those underlying issues haven't gone away. So there's a lid being kept on them, and maybe over the next century they might go away, but still they're not good.
I was told by some people over there that I truly believe that part of the problem is self-induced, because when you have the fighters, the young men, there was a period of time there, quite long, that you had kids and grandparents, and there was no in between. And so now you have an inculcation of the grandparents on the grandkids. Don't forget 604 when those dirty, nasty, Croats or whatever did this. And so there's an inculcation there. And they say it's going to take at least 2 generations to filter that out in order to have some peace and stability. And so I started looking at that, and I said, that probably has a lot to do with it. We do take a lot of our knowledge and our culture from our parents. And if that's what we believe, that's what we believe.
Exactly. I mean, these are the legends that I was taught at school and you were taught at school, in the way your country came about and my country came about. And those legends from the Serbians or the Bosnian Muslims or the Croats, they all have their own legends, which are often to do with the conflict. And so you grow up as a young teenager full of energy and you want to go out and fight somebody. Yeah.
I was in the French sector in Sarajevo. I was in the American sector in Tuzla, and in the 2 different cultures, military. I mean, you go to Sarajevo, I could go out and drink, have a good time. One person had to carry a gun loaded. He was our duty armorer, just like you have a duty driver. He was there to keep everybody safe, but pretty much a lot of freedom. I go to Tuzla, I can't leave base, I can't drink, can't go off base, I can't do anything. You're there, that's it. So totally different rules of engagement for where you're at, and I'm sure you've seen that more than a few times.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting, I mean, if you take your local neighborhood, say in Texas, or my local neighborhood around London, and suddenly you find you can't drive down a certain road, or such and such a village you can't go to. And this divisions that I think are in all our societies, and what you need is strong government and vision to sort of get rid of them. But in the Balkans, as we call it, it's quite tricky there.
Yeah. Quite tricky is understating it. Okay. You've been a correspondent around the world, done so many things, so many places. And then all of a sudden you're now become a writer, an author. Tell us a little bit about that journey to get that first book.
Well, it was more, I was doing them simultaneously, actually. I was the BBC Beijing bureau chief back in the early 90s. And I opened the first television bureau there in China as it was still beginning to open up, and all of that. But at that sort of stage in your career, a foreign correspondent feels they should have a book under their belt. So I drafted this sort of outline to a book and gave it to an agent I found in London. And when I went to London, he took me to see a publisher. And it was a bit day like this, a bit of wind and breeze blowing through the office. And the publisher had all sorts of awards and pictures of him with the great and the good. And he laid this piece of paper, my outline, on the desk. And he looked at it and looked at me. And then a piece of wind blew through and it lifted the thing off the desk and it ended up in the rubbish bin. And he didn't go and pick it out. And I said, and I looked at my agent looked at me, I looked at the publisher, and he leaned forward like this. And he said, Humphrey, this is all very good and worthy, and I could publish it and we'd sell a few thousand copies. And it's a very good book, I'm sure. But tell me, could you write a book like this? And I said, like what? And he said, can you write a book about America going to war with China? And being a journalist and hearing a precise commission from an editor, I of course said, yes, I can. So I did a book, and it was called it was published as nonfiction actually, but it was a future military scenario about a war based on the South China Sea, which is now fully developed and under Chinese control, and how China and America would fight this war, including, we put in there, as well as all the gadgets and the aircraft carriers and the missiles and everything, we also put in there the insider trading on the stock markets. And that hadn't been written about before, on the basis that if you know when a war is going to start and you know when it's going to finish, you can make a lot of money in oil and gold and God knows what. And the book came out, it was called Dragon Strike, and it became a bestseller, a lot of it to do with the City of London and everything, because people were fascinated in that, but then and also in how, you know, what is China? What is America? What is all happening now? This was all 25 years ago, Red. And actually, I did two other ones after that. I did one called Dragon Fire, which was about Pakistan, China, and India going to war, where America was a bit on the periphery. And then I did one called The Third World War, which was, yeah, thank you, they're up there. Third World War was Russia, Pakistan, India, America, Britain, and Europe was in there a bit. But what I found interesting, because as I said, these were out a generation ago, is that each of these countries was sort of characters in a fictional novel. And the character of Russia was the character of the leader, and the character of America was the character of the leader, and so on. And that these were guys that were just trying to hold their countries together and put them on and that sort of thing. There wasn't a kind of Saddam Hussein, you know, corrupt dictator in there, or Gaddafi. They ran structures that reflected their country. And at the end of it, you know, none of them particularly wanted a world war, but they had painted themselves into a corner that they couldn't get out of it. And as I see the headlines today, I sort of shudder a bit. Think if we got all these guys painting themselves into a corner that they're not going to get out of. So that was and I was writing those whilst I was a foreign correspondent for the BBC. So I was writing them on the hoof, actually. I remember sort of as the Third World War, I was editing it in a bunker in Baghdad at one stage, and also at the sort of transit lobby at Dubai airport, because you had all these deadlines going on.
So you've been a writer forever. It's just now you have to take up, now I have a character, I have a time frame, I have a basic plot, I have the cultural, I mean, there's so many different aspects of it. So you start putting these things together, and we're going to talk about your nonfiction, your fiction, but let's start with the fiction first, because that's your Rake Ozena series.
The Rake Ozena series, yes. That had its genesis because I was doing a BBC assignment to the US-Russian border. And I managed to get commission to go there because it was before the Ukraine invasion, but something was going on with Ukraine or Russia and the US and that. And there was the growing tension between these two antagonistic nuclear superpowers, the goodwill and all the blossoms and the petals that were coming from the winning of the Cold War, that had all gone away, and we were getting down to hard realpolitik. And I said, I want to go and have a look at this border. What I didn't realize at the time was that the border, you think goes, or most people think it goes across a 50 or 60 mile stretch of water between Siberia and Alaska. But actually, in the middle of that stretch of water, there are two islands. And those islands are barely 2.5 miles apart. And on one of the islands is a native Alaskan village with about 80 people on it. it's a sort of basic remote village. There's no roads, there's no hotel, there's no restaurant, there's one shop, I think, and that was it. And then across the water, there's a Russian military base. And that is the border goes down the middle of it, as well as the international date line. And I thought, I've got to go there. And so I had arranged for a helicopter to fly out. You have to charter a helicopter to fly me and a camera person out. And we were to be overnight and then come back in, just get the shots, do the piece to camera and the rest of it. But the fog came down. And the fog stayed for 10 days. So that means I stayed for 10 days. And that means that I just, once you've done a bit of it, there wasn't much more to film. So I just sat and sketched out what ended up being the first of the Ray Kazena series. And I kept thinking to myself, what would happen if the Russians suddenly just came across and took this island? There's nothing to stop them. I mean, there's no police there. There's no military there. There's no sort of big guns there. And even the border, amazing, Red, the border itself is unmarked. There's no boys that saying you're now in Russia, you're now in the US. It's completely empty. And it's closed. It was open, pretty much open with free traffic up until 1948. In the Cold War, it was closed, and it was called the Ice Curtain. Now, crossing the Ice Curtain. So I wrote a thriller about what would happen if, the Russians come over. They come over to sort of fake it in a way, because they claim that there's a medical emergency there. So they come over with a Red Cross on their helicopter, plus a lot of gunships and the rest of them. They take the island. And interestingly, when I was researching it, I went through Washington, and I was asking people, so I might ask you this actually. I was asking people, what would America do if Russia took this remote Alaskan island? Would they go to war over it, or would they just say, let them have it?
Why don't we bring that up right after the commercial break? Okay, so we'll continue on very shortly.
Okay.
My Tummy Hurts by Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Meet Jackie. She loves recess, running with friends and laughing on the playground. At school, Jackie tries to play like she always does, but suddenly the pain comes back. Lately, something feels different and her tummy hurts, sometimes a little and sometimes a lot. With the help of a caring teacher, a nurse, her mom, and a kind doctor, Jackie begins to understand what her body is trying to tell her. Sometimes tummy pain is more than a simple bellyache. Some children live with conditions like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease. Jackie listens to her body. She asks for help. She knows she's not alone. And Jackie finds her way back to running, laughing, and being herself. My Tummy Hurts, a kid's guide to bellyaches and bathroom troubles by Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, available on Amazon and in fine bookstores around the world.
Brett O'Loughlin here. We're on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And my guest today is Humphrey Hawksley. And we're in the middle of a discussion on, I think the island's a Little Diomede or something like that. Humphrey, please join me back up here on stage. And we're going to talk about what would happen if Russia did decide to cross that international date line and take over an island that's basically unprotected. So
yes. So what do you reckon?
Well, I've flown out in that area quite a lot. I was done a lot of flights out of Adak, Alaska, which is about midway down the Alaskan chain. You probably maybe even landed there once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a military base there. And when you're out in that area, first thing is communication. So depending on what's going on with cell phones and everything, you probably get at least some notification that, hey, there's a war going on, whether it's through a commercial channel or not. But I guess the question really depends on how quickly do you find out that somebody has invaded you. And I don't think the United States, depending on the president, depends on what kind of reaction you're going to get. One may be an immediate counteroffensive on that particular part of the world, not necessarily into Russia itself, but certainly to defend that part of the United States. Again, this is just my opinion. But depending on, if you're just like what's Crimea, take that for example. I think that would be a similar episode. You have a foreign country taking over another piece of land from another country, and nobody does anything about it for all practical purposes. And then, so is this one of those ones where, okay, that we can live with it. Just let them have it. It's nothing out there. There's no vital link or anything. I think that could possibly be a scenario, maybe 10, 15%. But I don't think America takes kindly to people just, like Pearl Harbor. You attack something, there's going to be a response. What level of response is there? I don't know. It could be anything. Nowadays in Iran, the whole war, the battlefield has changed with drones. And it's just a totally different war than we fought in Bosnia.
Oh, God, yes. Yeah, because Bosnia was on the ground, wasn't it? I mean, there was a bombing, but it was basically on the ground. And it was to do, and Bosnia was interesting because it wasn't, Bosnia is totally different to Iraq or Afghanistan, where it was a sort of insurgency, but Bosnia wasn't an insurgency. It was these different sections fighting each other. And this one scenario we're talking about on the US-Russian border, when I was doing the research on it in Washington, a significant number of people, not the majority, said, oh, we'd just leave it. We'd just let them have it. But I couldn't see that happening if you've got 80 American citizens on there suddenly being governed under another flag, that Washington could let that go.
Yeah, that's the issue right there. American citizens, wherever you're at in the world, if there's American citizens there, they want him out. Just like Iran, get them out, wherever you're at. And so, there's a strong feeling toward that.
Yeah.
Let's get back to your book here, because we've got not many minutes left, and I want to get into. So you write. Who's your editor? I know your publisher you're a publicist.
My editor's read change all the time, but the person that the person that first commissioned is a wonderful editor called Kate Lyle Grant, and she's moved publishing companies and taken Rake with her in a way. And then the editors, I think you probably know, you never quite know who your editor is going to be. So as an author, I try to use my own and then when it goes to the publisher, it's in pretty good shape. And the publisher might pick up one thing or pick up another, but it's not going to be a big structural edit there. And I think in today's, world of publishing, with all the cuts and everything, the editors don't have time for that sort of detailed structural edit that they would have done 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Do you think AI will get involved in that structural aspect of it?
I know that AI is getting involved in it, yes, particularly in commissioning new books. So before, you would, as a budding author, you would sort of send your manuscript into the publisher and they'd write back rejecting it or taking it or, whatever it is. Now you've got a lot of self-published authors on Amazon, Kindle mainly, or self-published up there. So the mainstream publishing companies are scanning that market to see which ones are doing well. And then they'll approach the ones that are doing well and say, do you want to come with us under a traditional publishing? And then there is now AI software that can run a manuscript through a bit of AI software, and that'll tell you, that'll say it can be marketed to such and such a group. It's this sort of demographic. It's this, is that, the other. So, and I'm saying this now. I think a year ago, I'm not sure that this was around. So I think 3 years from now, if you say, is AI going to be involved? AI is deeply involved. Yes.
I started trying using AI for editing, and when I said edit, it took a 20-page chapter down to 2 paragraphs. And that's, oh my God. Yeah. So anyway, I started realizing you have to almost ask, what's the prompt for editing this, paragraph or chapter with regard to punctuation, spelling, syntax, diction, all the rest of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I finally got a paragraph prompt that worked pretty well. And then I asked to proof it for a 7th grade level. So now I bring it back down because I write very technically.
Yeah.
I'm big into the chemical and everything else. So excuse me. Mine is nonfiction, but it's in the area of health and wellness, longevity, and that stuff. So
Yeah.
most of my stuff is really technical, and I need to have it brought down to a level. So I usually ask it, okay, what's the real technical title? And then give me a 7th grade version of that title so people can understand. So I use it a lot for that.
Yeah.
I love your covers. How did you get your covers done?
The coverage of the covers or the coverage?
Yeah, cover.
Oh, the covers. The covers are the ones that you're showing, which I love a lot. So these have been, and this is a new thing in publishing I didn't know about, these have been relicensed by another company. So these are brand new covers, actually. And I think the last one I silenced only came out about a couple of weeks ago or something. And that goes on to, and these are mainly ebook sales. And they bought it to me. The first one was Man on Ice, which was the Russian island. And I looked at it and I thought, yeah. And now they've done these four. And I think, I mean, I'm not sure what you think, Red, but you've got a brand there, and you've got a person, you've got a character there that you identify with, and you have hostile environments around you, and all of that. So I'm hoping that the next one I do, that's due out in October, will have a similar branding to it, so that you do it. Well, what do you think? You think they work?
I love them, actually. You happen to pick a genre that I spend a lot of my personal time reading in. Yeah. And so I have an interest in them just because of what I read in background check on you before we started the show today. Yeah. But after talking with you and getting to know you a little bit better, you know, last week I ordered a book from a guest we had on a while back. I'm definitely going to be ordering 1 or 2 today, so I can tell you that's going to happen. But your next book is Operation Icebreaker. You say September, October it's coming out?
Yes, that is the 5th one of in the Rake Osena series. I think they've now got a date. October the 6th it's due out, and I hope to be in the States and Canada, where they've got the big Bouchercon conference there, which is the Thriller Writers Mystery Bouchercon, I think at the end of October. But that one, I found that one quite interesting, as I signed the contract for it last July, I think June or July or something like that. And it was actually a scenario, very fictional scenario of the US trying to take over Greenland. And then, of course, as the months ticked by, particularly the uproar of it in January, it became a bit of a reality. So even in my fictional account, as the proofs came in and everything like that, I had to tweak and change bits of it. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I've had a few of those situations before with my books, but that was with that one. So Rake is and Greenland, of course, is up in the Arctic. Rake is an Arctic fighter. And as a part of the research for it, I talked a lot to the Danes because they run Greenland, and they would tell it, I mean, tiny little things about how they use their sled dogs and all of that sort of thing, but also the bigger political picture of how they, a NATO member, would push back militarily against the US moving in. And we've actually, there were meetings where all of that was being planned. That they would not just lean over to the US and let them take it. And then the treaties became quite interesting because essentially America sort of runs Greenland anyway from a security point of view. The security treaty means that it can do pretty much what it wants there. And I was up in Fairbanks, Alaska, where they've got the Fairbanks University, where they have a lot of experts on security in the Arctic. And they were talking me through the whole idea of the missile defense shield, which goes from, well, it actually goes from here in the UK up through to Greenland and then across Canada and then down to Alaska. And that detects the missiles taking off and is the main protection against a nuclear missile strike against the US. And they told me, look, we actually 100%, we do not need to take Greenland because they could fly in whatever they want, whenever they want under the treaty. So I'm not quite sure what that is all about. But as far as the thriller goes, it is a fantastic landscape. of sort of ice and wildness and remoteness and hostility. And interestingly, I learned that the Greenland native Inuit language, there is no word for war. And the reason for that is that it is so hostile and so remote that you haven't got time to fight. You cannot contemplate fighting because the guy that you're fighting might be the guy digging you out of the snow or something, you know, the next day. So they just don't have that word.
So it's survival.
Yes, it's, you know, that's it. It's exactly survival. And actually, there was a guy, all the professors at Fairbanks University are fascinating. They're sort of professor this and professor that, but actually they're all special forces guys that have really, really got the lived experience. But one of the guys wrote an interesting paper about how the US Special Forces, the SEALs and Delta Force and all that, should do some training with the native Alaskans, because these people know how to survive. It's a second instinct for them of, you know, how to hunt, how to keep yourself as warm as possible, how to read snow and all of that. And they could teach the special forces so much. And at the moment, as far as expertise goes, the lead in on this is the British and the Norwegians and the Nordic countries are far more advanced sort of militarily and with DNA know-how of how to operate in the cold than the Americans are.
So not only are you a best-selling author, you're a prescient author.
Who knows? Who knows?
Well, obviously, knowledge of things ahead of time, so you never know. Yeah. Anyway, we're getting down to that point in time in the show that I usually ask my guests, you know, how do people buy your books? How do they get in touch with you? So let's talk that here for the next minute or so.
That's the Humphrey Hawksley. My name is up there. If you Google that, it should come up. And I have a website with all the books on it, with the video trailers and the characters and that. But the Amazon in the UK and Amazon in the US and Amazon wherever you are in the world is that Reiko Zena series is on. They keep putting it on special offers and all the rest of it. So last week it was free or something like that. Now it's, you know, $2.99 or 99 cents or something for the book. So download it, have a read. Let me know what you think. I am on the website is my email. I don't have any blocks, no agents and that. The emails come to me and my assistant, and we talk to you. And we love pushback about any crazy ideas, and we love ideas, you know, of where you would want to see the next Arctic thriller be based on, what issue, on what people should be involved. We love all that.
Okay, we're live TV right now, but we do have an audio audience on the podcast to go out after the fact. So for the audio audience, Humphrey, Humprey, Hawksley, Hawksley, HumphreyHawksley.com. Humphrey, it's been great. I'd love to chat with you a whole lot more. Unfortunately, today we have a time commitment. But please, I would welcome you to be back anytime on this show or my other show called The Wise Ones, which starts in about 23 minutes.
Oh, I will tune into that, Red. I felt we only touched the surface on Vietnam, Bosnia, whatever we were talking about.
So anyway, love chatting with you, and I look forward to our next conversation. And I definitely will be buying at least one or two of your books to get an idea of how well you write and how well you can capture my imagination.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Take care. Red O'Loughlin here. We're wrapping up the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. We had a really good talk today with Humphrey Hawksley, man, you know, bon vivant, just amazing person. Also a fiction and nonfiction writer, a strange combination. Not too many of those out there. Don't know many of them, but I do know a few here in the Houston area. And not sure what else to say with regard to that. So let me go into the next show. I have an expertise on tea coming up. I've known her now for a short while. She's in one of my networking groups, but she specializes in tea, and we're going to be talking about that kind of business as an entrepreneur. The show is called The Wise Ones. It follows this show every single week on Thursday. And then my final show today is called Talking Heads, and my topic today is going to be consistency and how it helps your health and aging. So Red O'Loughlin signing off. Catch you all later on. Bye now.
Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? In a world quick to judge, one book dares to reveal the hidden cost of silence. Discover Holy but Harmful, The Silent Sin of Judgment, How Hidden Judgments Destroy Relationships and Damage Lives by Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. The Amazon #1 bestseller that's transforming the way we understand ourselves and the way we see others. Pick up the companion workbook to uncover your own hidden judgments and learn how to break free from them. Available now on Amazon and at fine bookstores worldwide.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care: How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to TracyCramPerkins.com. Tracy Cram Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.